Okay, so usually whenever you talk to somebody about like end times events, they usually assert their interpretation of the book of Revelation. So, just real quick, the definition for eschatology is the study of the end time. So, whenever you hear somebody say, like, "Hey, I'm studying eschatology," or they start talking like end time apocalyptic stuff, that's usually like what they mean by eschatology. So, just so you guys be aware of that, right? So there's four general views on how people approach the book of Revelation. And I say general because, man, there's like intermingling with people. Like some people will hold a little bit of one view and a little bit of another. So if I'm not representing your view right, like forgive me for that. But there are four general views, and the four are futurism, historicism, preterism, and idealism, which is also called spiritualism. And I'm just going to give a quick breakdown of each one, okay? So what you need to know when you're studying these views is that a lot of them circle around the idea of this like 1,000 year period and found in the book of Revelation, which is in chapter 20. And it says, I'm just going to read it real quick from verse 4 to verse 6. It says this. It says, "Then I saw thrones, and seated on them were those to whom the authority to judge was committed. Also I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for the testimony of Jesus and for the word of God, and those who had not worshipped the beast or its image, and had not received its mark on their foreheads or their hands. They came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is the one who shares in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years." Okay, so each view interprets their like in their own way the book of Revelation, and a lot of their ideas are going to circle around who the beast is to them, and then what these 1,000 years are actually all about, right? So the first view, I'm also going to put this little chart up just in case you guys are like visual learners. I kind of am too, so that's why I kind of like produce all these little pictures for you guys and stuff. But check this out. The first view is futurism. So futurism is going to be the most literal approach to the text, right? And they have the like literal 7 year tribulation period, a literal 1,000 year period of Jesus reigning and us reigning with him. And their view, the beast is the antichrist, which actually plays a specific role in the end times. As you can see on the little like chart, I put return has like 3 different spots on top of the tribulation period, and that's because people in this camp of the futurists, like who hold this view, debate whether or not Jesus is going to return prior to the tribulation, during the tribulation, or after the tribulation. So just so you guys can kind of see that, right? But it is the most literal approach to the actual book of the Revelation. The next one is historicism, and that view isn't held as much as it used to be. This view was popular with the Protestant reformers in the 1500s and stuff like that. And what they did was they interpreted the book based on the current events that were happening in their time. So to them, the beast or the antichrist, they thought it was the Pope. You know, like there was the break between like Catholicism and Protestantism, and so they kind of interpret like those events like that were currently happening in their time to mean what was happening in the actual events in the book of Revelation. So that one really isn't held anymore. So I mean, you don't really hear that one spoken about too much, but just so you guys are aware of that. The next one is preterism. So preterists believe that a lot of the events that are found in the book of Revelation happened in 70 AD. So most of the events prior to Revelation 20, they say occurred during the destruction of the temple, that was a prophecy that Jesus had mentioned while he was with his disciples. And that's where they think the tribulation and all that stuff happened in their time. So it's mostly interpreted contextually to Jews in the first century. And what they'll say is like the Antichrist was Nero, and the 1,000 years is actually happening or will happen prior to the second coming of Christ. So that's their view. And finally, for the idealist, the way that they interpret the book of Revelation is completely spiritual. So the things that are happening in it, to them, it's going to be like a spiritual reality between good and evil. And the book is interpreted to mean just like spiritual things. For example, the 1,000 years is a symbolic meaning of Jesus reigning. The Antichrist, like the beast, is like an attitude against like things of Christ himself. So that's like Antichrist. But like their approach to the book of Revelation is completely spiritual. And the events are just like spiritual ideas of what the church faces between Christ's first coming and second coming. So those are pretty much just like I didn't even scratch the surface, guys, on how deep these views actually go. But each person like builds their own case to why they believe these things. And just so you know, guys, like this is not something to divide over. Each view has a strength and has a weakness, some better than others. I have my own personal convictions about what I think is accurate, but I'm not fully convinced, just because, man, there are different cases and there are good reasons why to believe another view. But just so you guys know, it's not something to divide over. But these are the essentials. If you can see the things that I labeled in black on the chart, the things that are essential to the Christian faith is that Christ is literally coming back, like in bodily form. There's going to be an actual resurrection, and he's going to judge the world, like ultimately. And that's something that we all share in common. If it goes anything beyond that, like it's no longer like biblical. Like at that point, you're just heretical. But so, guys, just so you guys can know, guys, strive for unity and have humility in your view. So I hope that helped. And if you are starting to study Revelation and things like the end times, just have this in mind, guys, that other Christians may hold a different view, and there's no reason for you to start a fight with anybody. So till next time, God bless.